Welcome back to the Get Louder podcast. We have special guest in the house, Spencer Lugash.
That's right. He is the co-founder of Big Block Realty.
Overseeing 850 realtors and overseeing thousands and thousands of transactions.
That is correct. And he also successfully exited in 2018.
So you know what that means. He's very successful.
All right. And now he's currently also running Lugash Law Center. Ladies and gentlemen, Spencer Lugash. He's in the building, baby. Let's
everybody.
run that intro. Here we go. And there you go. Now you on camera.
Thank you. How you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Doing great.
Yeah, thank you for being in here.
I'm excited to be in here. I love your studio.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, we've been excited to have you on, honestly. After doing our research, reading your story, I don't know, it's kind of a big deal. I don't
know about
in
that,
the house.
but hey, let's go for it.
So take us back on how you got started. You started off as an attorney, or as a realtor?
No, I started as an attorney. So I went to law school in LA at Pepperdine. I grew up in LA, left there to go to University of Oregon, then came back to LA. And as we mentioned kind of off camera, you leave to come back, you appreciate what a great place we live in Southern California. So I came back to LA, went to law school, and I was gonna be a lawyer, and I did it for a few years. I worked for big firms, I worked for a little firm, I started my own law firm, and I just really did not like it.
Yeah.
It was litigation, and that was the problem. And things have kind of changed. Back then, when you graduated law school, you either chose a path, you either became a litigator, or you went down transactional law, and you couldn't really move from one to the other. I mean, you could, but it was very difficult. You got really pigeonholed. You're a litigator, you're a transactional person, and it was hard to switch over.
Right.
Nowadays, it's not the same. Now it's a lot easier. But back then it wasn't. I got into litigation and I just didn't like litigation. Super stressful. You're constantly dealing with people's lives and they're really upset about whatever situation they're in. And I just never really liked it. So I'll try and make my story not so long, but I decided, we were living in LA at the time. I was married. We were young. We didn't have kids yet. We were talking about wanting to raise kids, have kids. And I was like, I'm not into this lawyer thing anymore. Let's move to San Diego. I'm going to become an airline pilot.
Airline pilot.
An airline pilot. I came from this family, half of my family are pilots and half of my family are attorneys, right? Not half, but I have a number of pilots and a lot of attorneys. And so I'm like, let's give this a shot. The problem was, so I moved down here, got my pilot's license out of Montgomery Field, got my instrument rating, but it was horrible timing. It was right after 9/11. So the airlines weren't hiring. It just was bad timing, which, overall wasn't the worst thing because it would take me some time to get to the point where I would get hired by an airline anyways. Yeah. But the other problem was I was probably 30 or 31 at the time, which is kind of old to get started as a pilot. I mean, it's based on seniority and
you need flying hours,
and hours, and
hours.
The sooner you can get these jobs, the more, the better lines they call them you can get, the better routes you can get. Yeah. And so I'm sitting there as this guy who's about to have a baby, and I know I'm going to be working on all the holidays. I'm going to be flying out of the crappy little airports at the worst times. I'm like, I probably missed the boat on this one. Plus, it was a bad timing. So while I was getting my pilot's license, I started doing real estate. I answered an ad in the local reader here. I had my broker's license, which back then it was pretty easy to get your broker's license if you were an attorney. You just had to take the test. You didn't have to take any other classes. You just had to sit for the broker's exam. So I had my broker's license and I started doing real estate. And real estate was booming at the time. Yeah. I mean, that was 2001, 2002. Yeah. Real estate was skyrocketing. So I liked it. I was good at it. It was transactional, right? These are contracts. I read the contract. I advise people. And the unfortunate truth, I'm sorry, everybody, all the realtor community out there, but we call it RDR, realtors don't read. There's a lot of agents out there that just don't read the contracts. They don't know it. And so me having that, not just the skill to read, obviously anybody can read it, but actually reading it, understanding it. The brokerage I worked for, they asked me to become their broker of record, then they asked me to become their in-house attorney, started helping with all that sort of stuff. Then I opened up my own brokerage, and I just kind of said, okay, that's what I'm doing, real estate. is the key. And I really loved it, and I do still love it until 2006 hit. Depending on where in the country you are, people 2006, 2007, but here in good old San Diego, 2006 is when the fell off the cliff. Yeah. Real estate, as everything else did. And so just it stopped.
Yeah.
And by that point, luckily enough, I had been doing things long enough that I had a reputation. People knew I was in real estate. People knew I was an attorney. And so people started calling me because they're losing their house. They want to do loan modifications. They're in foreclosure. They're just all sorts of problems. And my phone started ringing. So I started a law firm at that point, the Lugash Law Center. And we started specializing in this very niche area of foreclosure prevention, loss mitigation, helping them, and all people with all sorts. I did litigation. I went back to litigation. Still hated it, but I helped people out with whatever I could. We did a lot of loan modifications, which had a really bad rap at the time. There was a lot of. You guys were young. You told me you were just graduating high school at the time, but
that's all subprime. Was that?
Yeah, it was all the subprime stuff, and there were companies coming out of the woodworks, advertising. We're going to help you with loan mods. They would charge people this money, and then they wouldn't do anything. And we would get a lot of those people coming to us saying we got taken advantage. We had to help them with that. It was a rough time, but we did a good job, and that just kind of moved things. The market shifted. Things slowly started to get a little bit better. People who were coming to us saying, "Can you help us save our home?" And we would do what we could, whether it was through the loan modification process or some other loss mitigation process. And then a year or 2 years later, they would come back and go, "You know what? We're done with this. We have so much. We're so over our head and underwater from an equity standpoint. We owe the bank this much. The house is only worth this much. It's just not worth it. It's going to be years. We can buy the house right across the street from us for $300,000 less or more than our house is worth. We'd rather just walk away from the house. We'll take the year hit to get our credit redone, and then we'll go buy a new house."
Right.
It was a good strategy. So that led into the short sales. That's when people started moving from loan modifications into short sale, and that was a big period. During that time is when I met my partners for Big Block, and we started Big Block as well. So I was kind of doing a little bit of both, building this big brokerage and then doing the law firm.
So at any, I always wonder this about people who are agents or brokers. How much did you get into real estate investing as well, or alongside brokerage?
So I do a minor amount of investing. I will say more and more these days, especially younger brokers. I mean, it's a whole new game out there. It's a you guys like you, but maybe more in the real estate space. They're doing podcasts. They're teaching. They're trying to have their hands in so many different things, and that includes building up investment groups. It includes just looking out for properties on their own to buy, whether it's a house or it's apartment complex or whatever they might be into, putting together funds that they manage. So I have a little bit of that, not as much as I should have and would like to at this point. My wife and I look at different things all the time and get into things we want, but there's a lot of guys that are starting young now, and they're really getting into that as part of their real estate business. It's not just about helping people buy or sell homes. They're always on the lookout, which, I think it's great personally because, the business is a tough business and the markets change all the time. We're in a really crazy market right now. And it's tough. It's tough for agents to be able to constantly have that steady flow of clients that they can help. So if they have other income source.
Applying what you're learning all the time, helping other people do.
Yeah.
100%.
Well, and that's a big part of it too. Kind of like, put your
money where your mouth
is. I mean, make sure that you're advising people on what to do. Hey, this is a good time to buy. I know interest rates are high, but a lot of people look at that like it's just a line, but the truth is now is a good time to buy. I mean, we know property's just going to keep going up. I mean, historically, that's the way it is. I mean, the median home price in San Diego is now $1 million, believe it or not.
It goes up $100,000 every month.
I mean, it seems like it, right?
I remember it was 700, then 800, 900. Now it's $1 million.
$1 million. So maybe just under $1 million, 995 or something like that.
Jeez.
So it's interest rates are high. There's a saying in real estate: you marry the property and date the rate. Meaning, the rates are going to go up and down. So maybe one day you can refinance it in between you guys and me, I don't see interest rates going down drastically anytime soon. But nevertheless, we're still historically pretty low interest rates. People were used to 2% and 3%, and then it gets to 6%, and they're freaking out.
Yeah.
But I was a kid back then, but I still hear stories of the late 80s when it was like
17%.
18%.
Crazy.
So
This is what I heard, and I think this is what's the difference between today and in the 80s or whatnot, right? And someone just told me, yeah, I remember when interest rates were 18%. I was like, yeah, but houses were only 2 times your income when it was 18%.
Right.
Now it's 8 times your income. So
that's a really
huge
good point.
difference.
It's a really good point. It's a huge difference. When, we used to when I first got into real estate, there was this balance between rate and price, right? If rates went up, prices kind of dropped. If the prices went up, rates, or rates went down, prices would go up a little bit. And that was because at the end of the day, it was really about your monthly payment. Like, what can people afford every month? And now things have just gotten pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And it's not quite the same. We're in a really strange market right now where there's no inventory, right? You'll hear this all over the country. Anytime you talk to anybody about real estate, it's our big thing. We have no inventory here in San Diego, but everywhere else.
Yeah.
So typically that would mean it's a seller's market, right? There's more demand than there is supply, and so they get to raise their prices. But then on the other hand, interest rates are high, right? Quote unquote high for what people are used to now. And so buyers don't want to buy.
Right.
And so we're in this real weird market, but they're still offering cash. They're still paying more than they're being asked for, more than list price. There's still people who are freaking out and losing multiple properties until they the penny drops a little bit and they figure out like, we're gonna have to step it up. And then the other weird thing is there'll still be houses that sit. You put a house on the market and it goes like that. And then there'll be some house right next door, and there's nothing weird about the house. I mean, you can't
I see that all the
out.
time because I got like Zillow notifications, and I'm always seeing every day I get a notification. It's like price cut, 10K price cut, 100K price cut, and I look at these houses and they've just been on the market for so long, and I wonder the same thing. And I say to myself, I was like, at the end of the day, the market is always going to reveal itself. It's
That's right.
People are either going to want it and afford it or not. And if they're not going to want it bad enough to spend the money on it, then the market has to eventually correct itself.
That's right.
And then I wonder, where the hell are all these people coming from with all this money?
With all the cash.
I'm like, bro, I thought we were struggling out here, but people are buying.
There's a lot of money here in San Diego. And a lot of it came from Northern California.
Yeah.
So when COVID hit and everybody started working from home, and they realized, well, if I'm working from home could be anywhere, right? And so I don't need to pay this top dollar amount to live in Silicon Valley. I can move down to San Diego where, it's still really expensive, but compared to there, no, it's not. And they could, cut their purchase price in half and still buy some beautiful home in Rancho Santa Fe for $5 million instead of $10 million.
Yeah.
And so they were all coming down here, throwing cash all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, I remember even before 2020, so working from home was already starting to become a thing before 2020. A lot of these companies didn't really need you to be in the office, right?
Right.
So these guys would come down from San Francisco, Silicon Valley, all that places, and they would tell me, I'm like, what brought you to San Diego? They're like, well, San Diego is way more beautiful and it's way cheaper. I'm like, what?
Where are you from?
They're like, let me give you an example. A studio apartment, a little tiny rinky-dink studio apartment in San Francisco is $4,500 back then.
That's wild.
He's like, over here, it's like $1,800 or whatever. He's like, way cheaper.
Yeah.
So you have
there's not too many places that are more expensive than San Diego, but there are a few.
Well, now I think San Diego's one of the most expensive cities in the country now.
So there was a period over the last couple of years, San Francisco and San Diego were kind of back and forth. I think San Francisco's maybe jumped up a little bit, but they're pretty close.
Because we're getting more and more industry. It's because of the industry over there, right?
Yeah.
That's the reason why people the rates went up, because everyone was making so much money. Coming over to Google, coming over to Twitter, coming over to this app. Everyone's making $200K, so they're like, let's raise the prices on them. And it's
I don't think it's let's raise the prices on them. I think it's supply and demand.
Yeah.
When you have the people with income come over here and they buy up everything, you can naturally charge more. They bring the economy goes up essentially, right?
And they're gentrifying areas, so like there's this area that's everybody knows is the nice area, right? And all the homes kind of get sold there, and the prices go up. So as people go, well, I'm going to move into the neighborhood right next door. It might be not just as nice, but we'll fix up those houses, and we'll fix up that community, and then that area becomes nicer, and it just branches out and branches out and branches out. So until an area that like used to be where the average working guy could go buy a house, now all of a sudden they're priced out of their own neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. And it becomes a sort of problem. It's sort of a double-edged sword, right? I'm all for gentrification because I like things getting nicer.
Yeah.
It's nice when you can walk down the street and not risk getting robbed. It's a wonderful feeling. But at the same time, it's if we we need people to work the jobs. Like we need landscapers. We need someone to make the hamburgers. We need somebody to work at the grocery stores. We need a working class of people. Not everyone could be a tech engineer or engineer this or make all this money. It just won't be sustainable. Someone has to do the labor. But if they can't afford to live in the city, we're gonna lose those jobs. Like we have to give room for these people as well.
It's hard when you can't afford to live where you work, and it's hard. And it's not just the working class or middle class, lower middle class, but I mean, I worry about my kids. I don't know what they're gonna do. I grew up with a family like, you're going to college. You're going to college. And not only going to college, you're gonna go to grad school. You're doing something. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to law school. So that's I knew that nobody would be mad at me for that, right? So it was fine. But these days, I have my old business partners at Big Block. I know just too many people now that I've met throughout my career in all areas that never finished college, never went to college to begin with, that are incredibly successful. Right. And there's just too much opportunity out there that college isn't always the right track. It's expensive as hell, takes a long time. The kids don't know what the hell they want to do anyways, and they just wasting their money at school for for the experience of partying. And that's not, I'm not against college either. I'm just saying it's just not the only path, or
not as practical as it once was.
Definitely not as practical. I mean, people ask me if they were, to go to law school. I'm like, you better since you were a little kid, you better have wanted to be an attorney.
Better love that.
Because I mean, I think it's $150,000 a year or something to go to law school. I mean, it's a crazy amount of money. And when my dad graduated law school, and his dad, my grandfather graduated law school, you were that was back in the day, you were guaranteed that you were going to live a nice lifestyle. Right. You were a doctor, you're an attorney, you're an accountant, you were just guaranteed a certain income, and that was going to be great. Now it's just not the case. I mean, you can graduate law school, you have hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and you're lucky if you can get a job, and you're certainly lucky if you can even get a six-figure job. Let alone some. Even if you got a job for $300,000 a year, you're top of the top of your law school class, and you are going to be a slave to that. I know a lot of people. I had a lot of friends who got burnt out working at large law firms, the mega law firms, and just a few years into it, and they're like, I can't do this anymore. I'm done.
Yeah, and they push everyone to go to college just to funnel them to college. I remember being in high school, not even wanting to be in high school. I was like, this doesn't make sense. And knowing what I know now, whenever I say that, people are like, oh, you wish you would have took school more serious? I was like, no, I wish I would have, because you could take a test to graduate early.
Right, yeah.
I was like, I would have took that test my sophomore year, graduated early, and went straight into doing business.
I mean, there are people who that's just their aptitude. They're entrepreneurs at heart. You guys are clearly doing this. You want to create something. Creative guys. You're motivated. If you have that, I mean, there's a lot of kids who don't have that, and they need they need that time to figure stuff out. Yeah. But there's again, I mean, you look at all the influencers and the TikTok stuff, and it's hilarious to a lot of people that that's a career and that they can make the type of money that they can make off of it. But my kid, I have 3 kids. My youngest he's going to be 16 here in a couple months. They're finally starting to get it a little bit, but I mean, it wasn't only a year or two ago where they're like, I want to do that, and there's this thought, and you guys know doing this, and I was just talking to you about how difficult it is for you to even be talking and moving cameras. But, they think that this is just somebody walking around with their camera taking video of what they're doing every day. There's a lot of time that goes into that. Not only just constantly videoing yourself and videoing what's going on you, which can be annoying, frankly, to a lot of people or people around you, but then producing it, getting it uploaded, like making it look good, making sure that your content is something that people are interested in. And so, there's a lot of kids that are like, oh, I'm just going to grab a camera and I'm going to become an influencer. I'm going to become famous.
Nuh-uh. It takes a lot of study.
It still takes just as much commitment as it would a lot of other professions, a lot of other jobs. The consistency of model of that some of these influencers, like, you have to admire how consistent they're able to be over such a long period of time.
It's the key to entrepreneurship in general. Like, there's people, and it's not either good nor bad, depending on what you need, but who need the structure of like a 9-to-5 job. I need to wake up in the morning and know when I got to go to work. Right. Whether I'm go to my living room now and get on a computer, I still go to an office, but whatever it is, I have these tasks to do. I got a boss making sure I do this, and that's great. And then there's other people who are like, I don't want that, but in order to be successful at what you're doing, you have to self-impose that. You have to wake up and go like, I got to get up today. I can sleep in. I don't have a boss looking over me. I don't have anybody who's gonna, make me do the things that I need to do, but
no one's gonna call you. You hold yourself responsible every single day. It's like
self-driven, man. And those are the people who they're super impressive. Yeah. Who really can do it, and like you said, man, do it every day. Just relentlessly, and know that that's the path to their success. Yeah. And I can't. It's not a saying, but an idea. For entrepreneurs, you're gonna spend a certain amount of time working harder than anybody else, so that later on you don't have to work at all.
Right. Exactly. It's funny because since I graduated around the time of the Great Recession, so I was in an unfortunate situation. I didn't have family. I grew up very poor. Right out of high school, I became homeless, sleeping on the streets. Right. Wow. But I didn't want to be there. Right. I look at all these bums. I ain't one of these guys. Don't talk to me. But I think that was like the biggest blessing that ever happened to me, because when we think about birds, kicking the bird out the nest, force them to fly, it forced me to be on my P's and Q's. It forced me to hustle, right? I have to get out of the situation, go business to business. Hey, can I do this for you? Can I provide this service? Can I provide that service?
No one's going to hand it to you.
No, and the biggest thing I learned as a young man, just starting out in life, is your only ability as a young man is your skills and what you can provide. And I had no skills, so all I had was labor. I can help you with this. I can help you with that. I can be labor. That's the only skill I have right now. Then I went on a journey, like I was telling you. I was a commercial fisherman. I was building houses in Texas because I was obsessed with, I'm homeless because I have no skills to get me out of this situation. So I can't have no ability to make money, and no one's hiring because all these businesses are bankrupt. Yeah. So I went on a journey acquiring skills. And through that journey, it forced me to be self-driven. It forced me to be on my hustle and bustle. It forced me to, so what was I saying? I forgot my point. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know. You were just, kudos to you for that, for that journey, man. It's important, just to bring it back, I think, to what we were talking about. It's easy to expect the world to provide you things. Exactly. And when you are on your own, just back to your kind of homeless issue. We have obviously a big homeless problem in San Diego. It's everywhere. California has a huge homeless problem up north. It's really bad. And a lot of us recognize that it's not necessarily a homeless problem as much as it's a mental illness problem. Right? And you're a perfect example of that. Like, you were on the street, but you have abilities, and you had the capability, not just physically but mentally, to go, this isn't where I want to be, and I'm going to pull myself out of this. Exactly. I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to pull myself out of this. And we can provide opportunities to people like you to help them get off the streets. For people who are mentally ill and they can't do it. They just can't. They have problems. Right. That's a different story.
I remember, so because I worked so hard to get out of my situation, and I figured out how to make money, and it was funny, as going from being a homeless kid to end up making more money than all the kids I graduated high school with, right? Who went to college and did everything the right way. I remember feeling sorry for I felt sorry for them. I felt sorry for like people who worked at stores. I was like, did you know? If only you knew how easy it is to make money, that you wouldn't be in a situation. And I remember feeling genuinely sorry for these people. And it's not until like now I'm 32 and I'm older and more wiser, and I realize not everyone has that hustle and bustle.
Yeah.
Some people need to have an employer.
They just don't. It's hard. It's really hard. So the people who do it, you know, it's very impressive. It's a skill set, and they deserve the success that they gain from it. But not everybody who even works that hard, not everybody's going to get that success.
Right.
You have to work super hard. You have to grind it out. You have to be willing to take the hits and get back up.
And
you have to
believe.
have a good idea. And but the good idea. There's a lot of people who have good ideas,
Right.
but you know, again, the old saying, you don't invest in ideas, you invest in people. I mean, somebody can have a great idea and they can't execute on it, and who cares?
Right.
You got to work with people who can actually get it done.
Absolutely.
It's really super important.
Speaking of that,
I wanted to ask a quick question real
Sure.
quick for it. Right now in the internet space, so because how I sort of came about, I always knew if I have kids, I'm not leaving them no inheritance. I'm gonna teach them what I know, and it's up to them to get it. And whatever I make, I'm gonna try to spend every dollar I can before I die.
Okay.
I'm trying to fall out.
You still feel like that?
I still feel like that. It might change when I turn 40 though. But
when you have kids.
or
Yeah,
maybe
when
when I have kids, I'll change my. But it's actually not uncommon from a lot of entrepreneurs to feel the same way. They're like, I believe in teaching my kids the skills on how to get it on their own, versus relying on me to die and give them everything, right?
I know a lot of people like that.
How do you
Yeah.
feel about that?
I'm a little bit mixed on that. I came from a pretty, fortunate upbringing and fortunate family, and I think that helped me. And so I want to, I have a lot of appreciation for that. I know that I had a little bit of help on the way, and I'd like to be able to provide that for my kids too. I don't want them to rely on that, obviously, but I also, even at this point, I have a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 16-year-old. I don't think that's not who I've raised. I haven't raised kids who would be like that.
Right.
And I feel like I'm gonna be around for a lot longer anyways. By the time I go, they're gonna be well established in life.
Exactly.
They're gonna already have their careers, and knock on wood, geez.
Yeah.
But so, I'm happy to help them my oldest, so let's hope I'm around for another 30 years plus. My oldest will be 50 years old.
Yeah.
They'll be
Right.
50 and 48 and 46.
It's crazy to
So
think about,
if at that point in their life I can help them, they get a little windfall and they can help. That's about their time when maybe they need something to help with their kids' marriage or send their
Right.
kids to college or whatever it might be,
Right.
then I'm happy to do that. I agree with the concept though that I don't want, they have to figure out their own thing.
Right.
And like we were talking about college earlier, I have these 3 kids. Each of them is completely different, which is everybody's story. And I know 2 of them are going to go to college, and that's their path. And one of them is not, and gave it a shot, and it's fine. And she's already got an idea of what she wants to do, and she's a super mature 20-year-old and is a hard worker and isn't waiting around for people to give her things. And so
Nice.
I'm incredibly proud of her and her siblings, and I'm not worried about that. They're not constantly looking to me to figure it out for them.
Right.
Although, they do call me all the time. I send them for this and that. Don't get me wrong.
You're consulting with them.
Yeah. You're right. I should send them an invoice.
Yeah, exactly. See, I think because I'm about to have my 3rd kid soon, and to the point of, I think a lot of these entrepreneurs are not saying that they're going to just spend every single dollar they have just so their kids don't take any of their money, so they so they don't seem like spoiled or what have you. But I think it's more so about it's instilling those those values and those qualities and also the skill sets as they're coming up. And so it's like they just don't want to be handing them cash. So they become these spoiled brats, and they're like, crashing their Ferraris and stuff like that. And it's like, it's more so of Well, in the process, it's going to be very self-evident. Like I'm essentially training my kids. Like you see Grant Cardone, like he calls his daughter on the phone while he's at a summit with 10,000 people, and he's like, "Hey, what's the NOI on the NOI if I'm on $1 million place? If I da 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 da?" And she's like, "Are you on stage right now?" She's like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Watch my daughter, watch." She goes, 16 million. He goes, "Boo." Like, see, I teach my daughters homeschool. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what it is. So it's like. It's more so like I'm training my children to become these things, so it's never going to be an issue of just handing them cash.
Right.
You know?
And to be fair too, a lot of the people that you hear about, the guys that talk about doing what you're doing and saying I'm not, I'm either spending a dollar, I'm leaving it to charity or somebody else. I'm not leaving my kids that much. These are like Uber 100 millionaires, billionaires who I think, which I also agree with, like they get to a point like how much money do you need,
right,
and how much, if I can leave you a few $1 million, great. Do I need to leave you a few $100 million? Like no, you need to figure that out,
right?
Or $1 billion,
yeah.
But
that's when you set up your trusts and all these things, so you understand.
Yeah, and I'm not complaining, but I'm not at that level. So my kids will, they got to split it 3 ways, and they're not going to get it for quite a while. I'm gonna hold on to it. And yeah, by the way, I'm also, planning on enjoying what we call the end of the third quarter and the fourth quarter. So
there you go. Got to.
If it's gone, it's gone, I guess.
But you'll have the assets.
Did you take notes, kids?
Send them this podcast.
They'll probably watch
Send them this link.
Be like, what? No, Dad.
I thought you said no.
Dad, we gotta have a talk right now.
Yeah.
You are being selfish.
I thought you loved me. I'd like to know because so. In the beginning of the show, we mentioned Big Block Realty, and in San Diego, people know that name. I've known that name. It's a big name, and so I think it's a big deal that you started that. So can you take us back to that moment of where you were when this was established and kind of what happened?
Big Block got started. The actual brokerage of Big Block was around before me. It was started by my 2 partners at the time who still own it. They bought me out a few years ago. And it was used for something different. It was just a tiny little brokerage, and they were doing a lot of short sales as well. And I was doing short sales legal. They came to me. They got introduced to me just by chance. They needed some legal help, and so we started working together. We liked each other. They had this other business that was doing short sales, and then the times changed. Like we were talking about earlier with loan modifications, there were a lot of bad companies out there doing. People were getting taken advantage of left and right. It was the Wild West when it came to short sales as well. HAMP had just come out, the government program, and none of the banks they were all interpreting how to do it differently and what the guidelines were. And so we were coming in and trying to help out and tell the banks, no, this is how you're supposed to do it. It was a crazy time.
Yeah.
So because of it, the government started coming in, Department of Justice started coming in, DA started coming in. They were like, we're going to come after people. We're saying this is illegal. They were saying stuff was illegal that, between you and me personally, I don't think was illegal. But they just didn't like the way things smelled, didn't like the way things looked. And so we were at an event at one point, and we kind of left. There was a panel that was doing the keynote speaker, and me and my partners left, and we kind of went, I think it's time for us to move on and do something else, right? And so they had Big Block Realty, again, small company. They had a name, and they said, we got this idea for this brokerage, this flat-fee brokerage. At the time, that was, we didn't come up with it, we didn't invent it, but it wasn't a big deal.
Right.
Those type of brokerages, there weren't a lot in California, especially not in San Diego. There was a couple big ones that were in Arizona and some other areas, but they were frowned upon in the real estate community. And so they said, "You want to join up?" And I said, "I'll be your broker of record." And we partnered up, and we did it, and we just moved in that direction. And I kind of put the law firm stuff on the side, other than the short sales that I was still doing personally. And we would negotiate those short sales. That's basically what the law firm did. And it was just me and a couple of paralegals, one of who still is like my right-hand person. And,
nice.
and really takes care of everything. So, back then it was just about building a brand new brokerage, right? With a new model. And you think about it, and it was sort of simple sell, right? It was like, why are you paying your broker so much money? Because again, back then, 99% of the brokerages were traditional splits. You come work for us, we'll give you an 80-20 split. You take 80%, brokerage takes 20. If you're brand new, maybe it's higher. Maybe you get a 50-50 split, 60-40 if you're great. But we were coming right off of the Great Recession, right? So agents had been gone through this period where they were really struggling, not making a lot of money, which means their brokerages weren't making a lot of money, right? And so their brokerages started to increase fees, increase splits, increase desk fees, increase marketing fees, stuff to try and kind of bridge that gap a little bit, close that gap and make themselves a little more profitable. But when things started to get better, they didn't rein back, right? They didn't say, okay, let's go back to your better split. Let's pull back on some of our fees. And so there were a lot of agents who were like, man, you weren't really there for me when I was going through a tough time. And now that things are getting better, like I don't really want to give you all my money. So, that concept was resonating with people. And then with my experience in the legal background and in the compliance and risk management, contracts, all the different documents that we use in real estate, and my partner, Sam Karamian's, his experience with marketing, and he's a phenomenal guy to watch on stage. He's just really fun. We started to do these free events, yeah. And I would do it on the residential purchase agreement or the disclosures or the listing agreement, and I would give a 2 to 3 hour tutorial. I'd coach them on the thing. Sam would do it on marketing, social media marketing. This is a long time ago, and people would come and they got to know us, and we would kind of give our little pitch, a little commercial in the middle of the event. Hey, if you like what you're getting here, you could get this all the time if we were your broker. They liked the splits, and so we just slowly started to grow. When we started, we had 0 agents. Wow. And when I finally left and decided to move on, I think we were at 850 to 900 agents.
That's amazing.
Largest independent brokerage in San Diego. They're still going strong. Congratulations to those guys. So
that's awesome. So do you attribute those events, hosting those events, as to like the kind of the growth?
That was in my mind. I mean, don't get me wrong. There were a lot of other ways that we had phone banks, and we had people calling agents and trying to get them in, but the big question we would get, they're like, well, who's Big Block? Who are you? And back then, that was a bigger deal. They're like, well, I work for Coldwell Banker. Nobody's going to want to hire me because they're not going to know who Big Block Realty is. And we had to change people's mindsets to I won't even say to teach them, but to remind them, because I really do believe it's the truth, that the average consumer, somebody who wants to hire you to sell their house or to help you buy their house, or help them buy their house, they're not really concerned with who your brokerage is, right? They're hiring you, the individual. What are you going to do for them? Because just as we were talking about all that entrepreneurship, I mean, that's the heart of real estate and real estate agents, realtors.
Relationship.
Like, it's to relate. They work for a broker, but they're not employed. They're not employees. They're independent contractors. It's basically their own business. Nobody's going to be there every day giving them a call at 9 a.m. in the morning going, hey, it's time to get up. You got to make your phone calls. You got to do your cold calling. You got to send out postcards. You got to walk the streets. You got to do whatever it is that you're going to do, right, to get the phone to ring, to get some clients. They're not doing that. There's classes you can go to and that say, hey, you should do this, but nobody's going to be there, making sure that you get up and do it. You can pay people to do that, sure. There's lots of great coaches out there, but that's just another expense. So to be really great, again, it's those guys and ladies who get up and they do it. They just do it.
Yeah.
So
what was the biggest attraction? Like, what was the biggest sell to Big Block?
Well, I mean, I'd love to say that it was, the broker's an attorney too, and all my knowledge and stuff, which, I know agents did appreciate and still do appreciate. They like working for that type of person, but at the end of the day, the reality was it was our commission structure.
Yeah.
It was a flat fee deal, and that they could save a lot of money. I mean, back then, I mean, even the median price wasn't $900,000 or $1 million, but we still were living in San Diego, and your average commission check with your average deal working at, let's say an 80-20 split for Century 21, Coldwell Banker, whoever it might be, you might be getting a check for $12,000, or excuse me, that might be your commission check, and so you might be paying your broker $5,000, on a check, and so for us, you can pay us $5,000 for the entire year. I think actually Big Block was a little less at the time, and so it was a real draw. The second question we got not just was like, well, who are you guys and how am I going to sell it? But it was like, well, how are you guys going to make any money? And we got that for a long time. How do you make money? And I was very honest. I was very blunt. Like, this is real simple. We need to get as many agents as we can.
Yeah. It's like a subscription model.
It is. It's a gym membership model.
So they're basically, the flat fee is not necessarily on the client side. It's on, they're just paying. It's like they're a barber. I'm paying for the chair.
Yeah. And so we used to get that confusion a lot. It's not so much anymore, but there were companies that gave discounted services to the clients, right? So it was 1% commission shops, or Help You Sell. I don't know if you guys even remember a company like that, or Assist You Sell, where you could go and you could it was like an a la carte menu. This is how much it'll cost for me to put a for sale sign in front of your house. This is how much it'll cost for me to put it on the MLS. Oh, you want the whole package? You want me to negotiate everything? Fine. It's 2.5% or 3%, but you can break it down to these other services. And those were known, still kind of are, as discount brokerages, as opposed to flat fee brokerages, which are the not the discount, but the better commission. It's about the better commission structure to the agent.
Right.
The agent still charges, 2.5%, 3% full boat to the client, because they're still giving them their full service. They're just getting a better deal with their broker.
Got it.
And so discount brokerages have a pretty bad rap in our industry because they're bringing the price down, right? So agents who want to charge 3% and they feel that they have a value at 3%, which they do, have a hard time when somebody else is coming and undercutting them and saying, we'll only do it for 1%, right?
Yeah.
And it brings the whole industry down. So they kind of get a bad rap, but we had to really differentiate ourselves and educate people that, no, we're not a discount brokerage, we're a flat fee brokerage. Has to do with how we treat our agents, not how we deal with the commissions that our agents charge to the end client. So there were a few hurdles that we had to break, and it worked out. And again, we all brought our skill set, and I had a couple great partners, and we were able to build it, and it was very exciting. Now, fast forward to today, and once I moved on from Big Block, I took some time off, and then I went and started another brokerage, also flat fee, which also got acquired by another company. And then that company didn't do so hot, so I took it back. I took the brokerage back, and so I've had that now for a couple years. Much smaller. We got 60 agents, which to a lot of people would be a lot of agents, but coming from my last brokerage, when they acquired us, they had 350. Big Block had 900. It's very manageable for me.
Yeah.
But years later, when I'm trying to recruit and I'm recruiting people, the idea of just saying, hey, it's just about, why are you paying your broker so much money? Why are you paying an 80-20 split when you could be just giving, this amount for the entire year? Well, that message doesn't have the same impact as it did 10 years ago or 11 years ago, however long, when we started Big Block, because now Big Block is around, Realty One, Home Smart, those are the big ones, and there's a bunch of Allison James, and there's a ton of littler ones. Yeah. And so the people I'm talking to, they just go, well, great, you're right. Why am I paying my 80-20 split? I do want to move to a flat fee brokerage, but I have 7 to choose from. So now why should I choose your flat fee brokerage over somebody else's? So it's gotten a little tougher to differentiate yourself in that market. And
how do you differentiate yourself?
Well, again, everybody's different, and nowadays, again, having a smaller brand and a smaller brokerage, it really is about the services that I provide to my agents, and agents that that most of the agents that I have are agents that have been with me for a long time and came from Big Block.
Yeah.
I do have, 15, 20 agents that are new, but I have a lot of agents that know me and they just appreciate the fact that I'm there for them when they call. That's a big deal. I mean, not just in real estate, in any industry,
I'll be
but
there
yeah,
whenever
it's
you
a big deal,
call
man. They call in real estate when somebody calls you, they need an answer now. Whether it's a client calling you because they want to look at a house, if you don't get back to them right away, they're going to call somebody else and say, I'm not interested in going to see the house tomorrow. I got time right now. I want to see it right now. And it's the same with the agents. They're in the middle of a transaction. Something's going right. Something's going wrong. Whatever the case may be, they need an answer to their question. It's happening right now.
Exactly.
And so a lot of times, it's not any particular broker or brokerage, but it just happens. So if you get too big, it's hard to get in touch with somebody that can answer your question for you, that A, can answer the question, has the knowledge to even know the answer, and then B, is available to answer it. So those are the type of things that I bring. I do a lot of training with my agents on that type of risk management stuff. And ultimately, it just depends on the type of agent you are. If you are an agent, who needs more marketing help and needs more hand holding when it comes to like, how am I going to build my business? I may not be the best brokerage for you, frankly, and there are others that might be better. And then there's others where like, hey, if you know what you're doing and you have an established business,
Contacts.
you have your contacts, you have your clients, and you just need somebody that when you need them, and when a problem comes up, it's not just do you want the help, but like it could be a big deal, right? It could blow up to something that's a major deal, and if you can cut that off right at the start, it's way better. So those are the type of things that I bring to the table, and that the agents that come work for me, they obviously have appreciation for that, and that's why they come. But everybody's different.
And that's invaluable. We live in a time where now we have access to a cell phone. People want things so quickly.
Right.
When you order something, you want it to show up to your door right then and there. And that was actually Jacob Schwartz. He's a real estate developer here in San Diego. He taught me that. He says, when people call you, you answer every time.
Yeah.
Don't be one of those guys like, oh, it's 5 o'clock, can't pick up the phone.
There's no such thing in real estate. I mean, again, there might be other industries, but real estate, it is, there's a joke in the community about people who think this is an easy job, and they're like, what, how hard is it to sell a house? And what they don't really understand is, first of all, that transaction can be crazy hard. Yeah. I mean, you are dealing with people, there's crazy personalities, and then you have the house that's its own personality, and there might be things, that can be a really hard job. But the hardest part of the job is getting the business, right? I mean, you don't just wake up and your phone rings and somebody says, I want to sell my house or help me buy a house.
Exactly.
People get their license because their brother wants them to help them buy or sell, or some family member, somebody that they know, and then they make this big check and they're like, this is awesome, like, let's do this. And then they go, well, hold on, like, now the one person I knew who wanted to buy or sell, that's done. Right. How am I going to make money for the rest of the year? And it's a pipeline, and and it's hard because agent, just like everybody else, like you mentioned, they make a phone call and they want instant gratification. They want you to pick up the phone. You need to answer now. But agents are the same way. They want the deal now. Like they want to, if they're calling somebody and they find out that person isn't interested in buying a house tomorrow, there's a lot of agents who will be like, okay, click, talk to you later, and they'll keep dialing. But the truth is, you need to cultivate those relationships, because you may want a deal today, you need a deal today, but in 3 months from now, you're going to need a deal that day too. And so you need to build that pipeline, and you need to cultivate and nurture those people, so that, great, you have somebody today and you have somebody next week, and then you have somebody in 3 months. Right. And it's a assembly line.
Yeah.
And it's really,
we're talking about it all the time. We talk about pipeline all the time. We talk about the fortune is in the follow-up all the time.
Nurturing
sequence.
The sale is made in the follow-up. It's not made right then and there. It's made in the follow-up. They might not need your services at the moment, but throughout time, they'll be like, oh, I need those services.
That's
and
right.
you're there for them.
And the worst thing that happens in real estate, and again in all other business, is when you don't do that follow up,
someone
and you
else
get
gets
lazy, and then you find out 3 months from now, 6 months, a year from now, even longer, somebody that you had talked to, somebody that was a former client that you helped them buy the house, and then 3 years later you found out that they just sold it, and they didn't call you. Not because anything went wrong. You go, we had such a great transaction. We loved each other.
Right.
They forgot you, man. They forgot your name.
Because
no
every
joke.
person they meet, they sell houses too.
I mean,
Hey,
they
man.
remember you. They remember you. They remember the experience, but they forgot your name. They forgot how to get a hold of you.
They didn't save your
And
phone number.
Right. They didn't save your phone. Well, even if they did, they can't remember your name, so they don't know how to look it up. And so somebody else contacted them. Happened to be the day that they were thinking about it. Somebody knocked on their door, dropped off a postcard or whatever it might be, and you weren't there. Right. You weren't there. You weren't following up. You weren't sending a post-closing campaign that just reminded them that you're here, so that when they were ready or they knew somebody, that their coworker or family member that was ready, they could go, oh, you know what? Man, I had the best experience with Spencer. Let me give you his number, and we're gonna give you,
top of
give him
mind.
that. Top of mind.
Staying top of mind.
So important.
Especially now with the
And it's
scrolling
so
all
much
day.
work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be automized and it can
Yeah.
be made easier by different CRM programs and nurture campaigns that you can set up, but they take a lot of work to set up at the beginning. And you still have to manage the system, and you got to constantly be adding people in the system, and you got to do a little bit more than just the system provides, and maybe hold one-on-ones and make phone calls every once in a while to have that human touch as well. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of work.
I think every entrepreneur experiences this, especially whenever they're in a position where their business is dependent on sales, right? And it's like they started it and they're the hustlers. It's like it takes a little while to realize the second I stop doing outreach and finding new potential prospects is
You're
the
dying,
second
man.
is the second that my pipeline stops.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden I'm gonna have this huge gap of no business. And if you don't have anyone else to follow up with, it's like if you're not doing new outreach on a consistent basis and continuing to add to that pipeline to keep the assembly line going, like you said, then you're going to have these gaps, and
It's
then that's the
100%
volatility,
true.
the up and down,
That
the up
we
and
call
down.
it the roller coaster.
Yeah,
And agents are, the real estate industry is notorious for having that because, and the other side of it is it's really difficult because most agents are, one person shop, right? It's just the agent. And so this is how it works. It's marketing, nurturing, and then I get a deal. Then I get a transaction. And now,
Then the marketing stops.
it's just me, right? So now it's like transaction. I'm working with my client, showing them properties, okay, putting in offers, getting the deal, negotiating it, doing inspections, like working the deal. Month goes by, deal's done. Now you look back at the beginning of the assembly line and there's nothing coming down the assembly line, right? Because you moved down and I got to run back to the beginning of the assembly line and start all over again.
Exactly.
So big part of what I do and what is necessary to teach agents and to breed successful agents is to teach them like how to manage all of that. A lot of agents, they want to bring in teams. That's the big new thing. They want to bring in help, but it's also, those are expenses, and you need to, from a business sense, teach people to go like, it's premature. It's too early. Like, you're not at the point yet that you warrant bringing in somebody to help you with this. Like, you need to do the work yourself if you want to be successful. Right. Like, getting back, we're talking about Big Block, and people would say, how are you making money? One was, I need to get as many agents as we can. And number two was, we're going to keep our expenses as low as possible. Like, just that's the way we do it. We didn't have a lot of offices all over the place. Like, there were a lot of things that we did to really try and keep our overhead down.
So what advice would you give to agents who are solo on how can they keep on bringing people into the pipeline, nurturing new leads, but also nurturing the clients they do have?
And fulfilling the transactions.
And fulfilling the transactions, because there are times when this takes precedence,
Yep.
When you're not busy, this takes precedence. When you are busy, this takes precedence. And then when it's time to close, you need to get paid. So this takes precedence. Like, you only have 24 hours.
Yep. And it's like you guys mentioned earlier, like this industry is not, it's not a 9 to 5, 5 days a week. Like you're working whenever
6 a.m. to
somebody
10
needs you to work. Now, that being said, you know, balance is the key to life, no matter what, especially you have 3 kids? Or you just
About to have 3.
Congratulations. Man.
Thanks.
So,
Congratulations.
yeah, congratulations.
It's getting hot here. It is hot.
You know that you have to, that's a priority in your life too, right? And it's easy to get caught up in one thing or another, and you hear about people all the time who are like, you know, my dad, I never saw my dad, he just dedicated his life, and sure, he provided us with a nice living maybe, but we don't know who he is, and you know, there are people who they're fine with that. Maybe their kids aren't, but they were fine being that type of parent. But these days things have changed, it seems like, and people want to be hands-on. They want to be close to their family. They want to build that. It's important. And the point was getting back to balance. You still need to create that balance. There are limitations, right? Somebody calls you at midnight. Like, come on, there's nothing in real estate that can't wait till tomorrow morning, even if it's at 6 a.m.
Right.
But we can still wait till tomorrow morning. Escrow's closed. Like, there's nothing that can happen right now.
Right.
But to get back to answering your question, the easy answer that's been going through our industry for years is like time blocking, you know. But I don't know if you're laughing at this because time blocking is the hardest thing in the world to do.
Yeah, but we do it. It is hard, but it's the only way.
I mean, you say, and what you have to do is, again, getting back to that balance and getting back to like a little bit of flexibility, you have to allow for some flexibility, because if, let's say you're in the middle of a transaction and you've dedicated 9 to 11 a.m. On this day to make outbound calls or to write postcards or whatever the hell you're going to do. You know, from a real estate perspective, you guys are obviously doing something different, but you're going to get a call. Maybe from a client in the transaction. You know, there are certain things, maybe you don't answer your phone for that period of time, depending on who's calling. Maybe you don't check emails. I mean, you can block, but there might be a real emergency that somebody that you have to take their call. Right. And so you have to be able to kind of work with that in time blocking.
Yeah.
But it just comes down to self-discipline and time blocking and just knowing, like, I'm going to do this at this time. Right. These things have to get done today. These are, somebody told me, and I still love the concept of it, you can never negotiate with yourself. Right. So people who are like, you know I should be doing this right now. I'm just going to give myself an extra half hour to watch this TV program or to just screw off, you know, and then I'm going to do it. Like, the moment you give in to yourself with that, you've lost it, because then it's like, oh, the half hour goes by and just 10 more minutes and just I just want to watch one more episode. I just want to do this. And like, the day goes by. Yeah. You know, so you have to be crazy disciplined and just be like, I'm not going to negotiate with myself. Yeah. You can reward yourself after the fact, right? When I do these things, then I deserve a break. I want to veg on the couch. I want to go out and get a drink. I want to go get a nice meal, whatever. I want to hang out with the kids. Yeah. Literally. But to say, like, I'm going to reward myself first and then get to it, bad idea.
Yeah. I feel like time blocking is the only way, especially for us ADD creative types. Yeah. We're all over the place, but it's like, if you don't have to time block the whole day. I think that if you're going to time block anything, just do it with your outreach, right? Do it with your cold outreach. Do it with your sales. Do it with the one thing that's going to actually keep your business going. So if you just have one block of time every day, it says, even if it's 1 hour, I mean, the amount that we can get done in 1 hour of concentrated outreach is insane. It's because we're used to just sprinkling it out throughout the day, and it seems like it takes forever because you're getting interrupted every 5 seconds.
Well, the Gotta minutes kill you, right? I mean, somebody coming in and whether it's coming into your office or a phone call or an email, and you let yourself get distracted. I mean, I learned this in in my law practice, because I would write these letters, right? I'd have to write a letter to a bank, or I'd have to address something, and I would write these. You know, they're pretty good letters. They're a couple pages, 3 pages, and people they think like, oh, you bang that out in an hour. No, I mean, it can take hours to like draft it and revise it, and so somebody would call you, or you try to deal with another email, like in the middle of like, I'm in it, man. Right. You know, I'm like, I got my thought process going, I'm in the zone, and then you get interrupted. And even though it's a 5-minute interruption, that 5 minutes is like compounded by the fact that like, now you kind of got to like get back going. Like, where was I? What was I doing? And now it's more like 15 minutes, at least to kind of get back in the groove. And that time, you get a few of those, and that's an hour, of 3 5-minute calls is really an hour of time that you weren't productive.
Right.
And
you interrupt that flow state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, again, there's a little bit of a going back and forth of saying like, hey, you need to be available whenever clients call you or whenever somebody calls you in real estate, and balancing that out with like, but you also need to set expectations.
Exactly.
These are times these are the normal times that I'm available. I mean, I used to, as a broker, I haven't, when you have that many agents as they did at Big Block, and it's interesting, the people,
Yeah.
personalities. And so I remember getting calls from people that are like, I haven't been able to get in touch with my agent. I've sent emails, I've called, and like you hear that and you're like, oh, over days, right? It's been a week. You've been calling, emailing, texting, and you call the person, you're like, okay, tell me, oh, come to find out, it's been in 30 minutes. They've sent 3 emails and called 4 times in 30 minutes, and their agent hasn't gotten back to them. I'm like,
come on,
I get it, but maybe they're at a movie, maybe they're with their kid, maybe they're in the bathroom. I mean, I don't let's give them a little bit more time before I start, laying down the hammer on them and being. So it's just, again, setting those expectations and for your clients and for yourself of what you expect your day to look like.
And some people are demanding. Like they want your attention and unnecessary attention. They want to ask you a million questions that you've already answered.
Yep.
They want to know where you're at, and it's like, yo, we can't do anything. Like if it's an escrow, we got to wait. You know what I mean? Like we can't force anything.
It's super hard. I mean, you hit the one they ask you the same question over and over. I used to get that all the time. Like they want an answer and they didn't like the answer I gave them. So they will spend a half hour, 45 minutes on the phone with me, just asking the question 10 times in 10 different ways, a little bit different, hoping I'll answer the question a little bit differently, And I'm like, you can ask me this question as many different ways as you want. I'm still going to give you the same answer. And it's hard because there's times where you need to shut that down. Mm-hmm. And there's other times where like you need to recognize the type of person that you're dealing with, what type, they're an engineer, they're an attorney, they need things explained to them multiple times. They need to hear it over and over again. Who knows? There's all sorts of different personality traits out there. And by doing it, as much as you're like, you finally get off the phone, you're like, oh my God, that person is just, but they appreciate, you have to recognize those times when you are providing a service to them that they need. That's who they are. They're, from our perspective, maybe an annoying person, but there's a lot of different personality that maybe think we're annoying in the way we handle things. And so, but they're going to appreciate that. And at the end of the day, they're going to respect it and they're going to remember you and they're going to refer you. And so again, there's that line of knowing like when too much is too much.
Right.
And I've had agents that I've advised them, like, you need to fire this client. Like, that you have gone and shown them 20 properties.
Right.
You've put 15 offers in on 15 different properties. They either won't do what's necessary to get their offer accepted, even after you've explained to them, they see the market, or they get their offer accepted and they keep backing out like within a few days.
Cut them loose.
Yeah. These people are wasting your time. Your time is better spent.
Yeah.
You just have to, you have to know. And it's definitely hard when you are broke, when things aren't going so hot and you're like holding on to that one potential deal that might work out, because that's the other big thing. People trick themselves into thinking that they're working, right? When they're really just spending time. Like they're maybe not sitting on the couch, they're doing something. They're
busy.
They're busy,
but they're not
productive. But they're not being productive.
Yeah.
And it's, especially in real estate, it's very easy to convince yourself that you're doing the right thing, because you get out of the house, you go to the office. People used to ask all the time, like, now again with COVID, like people don't go to the office as much, but do you have an office? Yeah, maybe we do, maybe we don't. Why? What are you going to be spending all your time sitting in the office as a real estate agent? Like, unless you're making phone calls, which you can do from anywhere. you shouldn't be in the office. You should be out showing properties. You should be out meeting people, listing appointments. You should be out networking, doing whatever you can. So
Real estate, man. I feel like it's the ultimate hustle.
it's a pretty big.
It really is, man.
I always tell people, like, to be a successful real estate agent is a real mind trip. Like, it takes two completely different skill sets.
Yeah.
You need to be a marketer and a salesman and a go-getter and diligent and just all of these things that it needs for anybody to get business, right? To hustle, to stay through it, to get a deal. Then you get the deal, and you need to you're reading contracts, you need to negotiate, you need to make sure everything's being done.
Right.
I's are dotted, T's are crossed. Like, that's right brain, left brain. Like, that person who can do both those things is very unusual.
Yeah.
And to be honest, there aren't a lot of them, even in our industry. It's very the people who are most successful from the monetary perspective are usually the good salespeople, right?
For sure.
And then they can hire a TC, transaction coordinator, or somebody else to help them with the nuances of the transaction.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're not the best at dealing with transactions. And for somebody like me on the compliance side, they're my nightmare, right? They're like, they forget that the deal's not done just when they get the client and they get their offer accepted. Like, there's paperwork that has to be done. Like, that's part of, I used to joke all the time, like, you go to Subway and you order a sandwich and they put, the pickles and the lettuce and the tomato, and they're like, I don't have time. I'm trying to get through this. I got 2 other orders, and I'm not going to put the turkey. I'm not going to put the meat on. And you get to the end, you're like, but the sandwich isn't done. Just because you've got it done fast, and it's not done.
Right.
You didn't do all the parts of it. And so, getting people to do that is great. But again, most of the really successful from a monetary standpoint agents, a lot of them are on that. They have the marketing skills. The agents who are really good at negotiating and really good at, like, making sure that they get the contracts done, they can hire people to do marketing for them and try and help, but doesn't work out quite as well. There's a lot of companies out there who'll take your money,
Right.
and not deliver on leads and stuff. So,
Well, if you don't have sales, you don't have a business. You could be the best. You could be the best negotiator, whatever. But if you can't get the sale to get to the negotiation, or you could be the best marketer, but if you can't close the deal once it's brought to you,
yeah.
you could be the best at anything. But without sales, you do not have a business.
No, you're right.
So that's the number one tool you have to get good at, is how do I get good at sales?
Yeah, I was
Everything else
telling
is
you
secondary.
before we got started that, not to offend anybody, and this is a broad stereotype, I admit, but lawyers are notoriously bad at that. Like, that's a prime example of, like, you want a good lawyer, right? You want the best lawyer who knows the law, knows the statutes by heart, knows the case law, can write it all up, can deliver good arguments, like the best lawyer. That person is probably not a great marketer, right? They probably don't have the same skill sets that can help bring business in the door. Now, maybe eventually they develop a reputation as this great attorney, and then the phone might ring. But when you're getting started, it's really, it's just like the internet. Like, you can have the best website, the best business in the world, but you're out in the desert,
traffic.
Unless people know to find you, you're nowhere.
What's funny, how you say you're not a good marketer is that we're a marketing agency. So we have to help the lawyers because they want to have this law talk. And it's like, no one knows what you mean. You're using legal jargon. I don't know what you mean, right? And being able to coach them and be like, this is, you're starting off speaking, you're like, hi, my name is Spencer from this law firm, and I help with this type of stuff, and we're going to get into this legal jargon. Bro, I didn't even get past your name.
Right.
I didn't even get and coaching our clients into being like, we're going to speak to people like they're in the 5th grade.
Right.
And we're going to
Homer Simpson.
We're going to simplify it, and we're going to hit them with a catchy hook, like, did you kill someone in a DUI crash? It got my attention.
Yeah. Huh? Actually.
Well, if you did, you're better off doing this. Don't take the test. Go to the station. Leave the whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you got to really capture attention when it comes to marketing.
Right.
And the problem is people are so analytical. And when you speak to colleagues, you speak in your guys' language. Like we speak to each other in a language that you won't understand. You speak to your associates in a language that we wouldn't understand. So being able to speak in a language that captures eyeballs and views and attention, because that's what you're getting. You're capturing attention.
Yep.
So that's the goal, and like you said, like unless you figure that out, and I hope if you guys are watching this, listen to this part, learn how to speak to people very simply.
Yeah.
Take the college degree out of it.
Yeah.
Speak to some kids.
Yeah. give them something that they can appreciate, that they take away, something of value, and they understand.
Exactly.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Totally.
Awesome.
No, well, I have a question actually.
stuff.
Yeah.
That is awesome. You're on many boards, San Diego Association of Realtors, Zoom Technology. Is that Zoom?
It's not Zoom,
Zoom,
that
Zoom.
you think of Zoom. I wish.
different-
What is it?
It actually has changed its name, so now it's called Fair.io, and it is a rideshare company.
Oh,
And so they just got a patent for some software. It's basically a POS system. It's kind of like taking the rideshare industry and combining it with Airbnb. So the driver, right now, the drivers don't really have much control over their business. They are, their fares, their routes are all dictated by Uber or Lyft or one of those companies, and what they make. So the idea here is that, again, these are individual drivers with their own business, and they can go on to this platform, again, Fair.io is what it's called now, and they can market themselves to whatever it is. So they can, so Uber, I think they've changed a little bit, but their motto at one point was they never wanted a driver to have the same rider twice, right? They didn't want to develop those relationships so that then the rider just called them on the cell phone and said, hey, you can come pick me up. This is the exact opposite. It's basically putting everything in control of the driver, saying, this is your business. We're just a platform, just like Airbnb is. It's your house.
You list your car.
You list the services you provide. You know, if a rider wants to get on the app and they need a ride from here to there, they have all sorts of things, items that they can choose from. They can just go, who's the cheapest? Who's going to get here the fastest? Oh, I want to ride in a Mercedes. I want a pickup truck. My family's here in town staying at an Airbnb for the week this summer. We need a guy that's going to pick us up with a pickup truck, have a couple of beach chairs in and a cooler that he can, and then pick us back up at the end of the day. Will you help my elderly mother go to the grocery store, wait while she shops, help her put the bags in and take them in the house? I mean, it developed, it kind of started with the idea of like when my kids were little and we wanted to Uber them around I live in an area called Point Loma, which is relatively small, but still, not only did they not, Uber doesn't allow, I think you have to be 15, I think was the minimum age. But, you didn't want to stick your 12-year-old in the stranger's car. But if you could develop a relationship with somebody and be like, hey, I need you to help me every once in a while, get my kid to soccer practice because I have a conflict, whatever it is, right across, like that would be a great thing to be able to have. So that's kind of what it started from. And company was able to get this patent on this service, and so now we'll see what happens.
that's amazing.
That is really cool because back when I used to take Uber a lot, I used to have riders that I liked more than other drivers. And I would actually get his information, his cell phone, and be like, hey, if I call you, you think you could be the one who picks me up?
Right.
So that's great that they actually have an app for that.
Yeah.
And I hope and I think it would do really well.
I hope so too. It got derailed with COVID, like as nobody was going anywhere, so we were just getting started. And back then it was Zoom. I mean, funny story. It was Zoom was the name of this rideshare. We had an app, and we had drivers and we had riders, and then COVID hit, and our stock went. We were trading.
You were the other Zoom.
We were the other Zoom.
I remember
it went
that.
Crazy.
I remember that.
and
everyone was buying the wrong Zoom.
Yeah, and they had to come. They came in and they had to cease trading on us and stuff. And so that was one of the reasons why we were like, okay, we're gonna. I mean, we didn't. It wasn't our fault.
Right.
Like we just people didn't do their research to know the right Zoom. We were Zoom Tech, I think, and there was Zoom app, or I can't remember what it was. And so the stock went crazy. I wish I had bought a ton more of my own stuff. Although I'm glad I really didn't take advantage of it. I'm glad I didn't, because I think it would have caused me more problems than
Yeah.
not.
So if you bought it then, did it get like, was it negated?
No,
If you bought it and it went
if you
up
were
and
true,
sold?
like had nothing to do with the company, and you just happened to
yeah.
buy it, you just got. I mean, some people made a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, if you bought it at the end and then they shut it down, then
You were
you probably got
every
screwed.
day trader's
I remember
dream.
because I bought Zoom, the other Zoom, during that time, and I remember searching for it and seeing both and being really confused.
Yeah.
And then I was like, all right, because I always get nervous before I hit that buy button.
Yeah.
Go double check.
So you should. Yeah. So we worked out a deal. We changed our name to Fair, and so I'm a original investor, and I helped kind of get the company started. But now it's like it's got a CEO independent, and they give us our reports. I'm like, okay, one day just call me up and say we're selling it to somebody for $1 billion. Great.
Here's your check.
Uber wants to buy it.
It's like a play on words, fair, also like as FARE.
FARE. Yeah.
And then
But
it's also fair for
yeah,
drivers.
it is. It can be fair for the riders.
Is it a San Diego-based company?
Yeah.
Nice.
I love it even more.
Hey, download
Yeah.
Fair, everybody. Download Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.io.
Yeah.
Get them stocks up.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I'm on. Yeah.
And then also you're on Levitt and Quinn Family Law Center.
Yeah.
You're on board of that. What is?
That's so my grandmother was an attorney, which is pretty unusual. To be an attorney,
Right.
a female attorney in
those
like
days.
the
That time.
30s and 50s, like it was pretty rare.
I didn't even know you could do that.
That was legal.
So I think she had it was the first all women law firm in Los Angeles. And then she got married and had a family, and like women did back then, she stopped working and she raised her family.
Right.
Did a great job. But then after my grandfather passed away, and we're all the kids are moved out, and she's got grandkids now and a lot of time, and my grandfather was a pretty successful man, and so she had resources, and she was like, well, life has been very good to me, and I want to give back, and what can I do? And I have a law degree. I still have this law degree, and so she went and started working for Legal Aid, which was a government foundation back then to help low-income families. And when Reagan came in power, that got cut, and they closed down Legal Aid. And there's all the stacks of cases and files. And she went to another volunteer that was working there, a woman named Grace Quinn, whose husband was like the deputy governor of California, or deputy mayor of LA. I can't remember which one, but he was a big deal too. And she was also volunteering, and she said, you got to come work with me. We're gonna open up our own law firm. Like Levitt and Quinn, they lived in these beautiful houses in Beverly Hills, and they would go to downtown LA and work at this horrible office that they rented with rats everywhere. And they took on these cases and they helped these people, and it has now grown into the biggest nonprofit law firm, family law firm in Los Angeles.
Wow.
They help thousands of families every year, low income, working poor, people who they're going through divorces, custody issues, drug problems, and they can't afford your typical high-end divorce attorney that wants to charge $300 plus an hour. And so they do it on a sliding scale. They go into court with them, and it's a really amazing law firm. And it was my grandmother's law firm. And so as I got older, I wanted to continue to be a part of it. My family, was getting older, and my uncle, her son, has been a big part. I've been on the board for years, and hopefully he'll be around for a lot longer, but he's getting older too. And so I want to just continue that and
That's awesome.
be part of that. So it's real. That's kind of a special thing for me.
That's some legacy
Yeah.
stuff
Man,
right there.
They did a 60-minute episode on her. It's called
Really?
La Mama, or my grandmother, the attorney, or something like that.
Wow.
And you can still find it if you YouTube it. It's cool. I mean, I'm obviously biased, but I think
No,
it's
that
pretty
is cool.
Yeah.
For sure.
So-
So in what capacity are you involved? Like,
I'm on their board,
Right.
and so for nonprofits, you don't learn this until you start getting involved in stuff like this. Like I'm on boards of a lot of different places, as you mentioned. Some of them are private companies, like Fair, my own company, Some of them are like associations, like the San Diego Association of Realtors. But when you get on nonprofits, they want you to help, guide and set strategy and long-term goals. But really, your job is to help fundraise.
Right.
They want you to go talk to all your friends and like help bring in money.
Get us some money.
Yeah. Money. So, so I'm on the board. I'm part of we do one big, huge fundraiser every year in LA. It's a big gala event. So I help manage that, and then we try and do littler things as individual board members to try and help bring in some money.
Right.
So that's my role there.
Spencer, you are a busy man.
Yeah.
You have done a lot. You're very interesting, very
Thanks.
awesome, and cool to talk to.
For sure.
Man,
I got I'm starting a new brokerage too that I'm really excited about.
Really?
A whole new model.
what's the name of it?
It's called Retro Realty.
What's different
So
about this one?
the difference with that is for kind of what we were talking about, answer your phones and everything, we have recognized, my partner and I, who's also been in real estate for a very long time, that we're really starting to lack in all industry, but in real estate, that customer service idea and be there and
Person to person.
Yeah, and so that's kind of like we want to go back in time a little bit. That's where the name Retro Realty comes from.
Nice.
To be able to push that on our agents, to teach that on our agents, to teach, being there for your client, to make sure that they understand everything. It's very difficult to mandate to agents that they have to go to trainings or they have to do this because they're not employees, right? And so you walk this fine line. So we have a system that we've set up that you need to follow. And one of the things that we're doing that is not being done in the industry at all is we are going to pay for all the expenses that the average realtor has in just being a realtor and doing their job. So their association fees, their MLS fees, their for sale signs, open house signs, lock boxes, business cards, things like that. In order to qualify for getting reimbursed for that, you have to make sure that you audit these courses and that you do you have to do X amount of deals. It's not a certain number of deals every month. But we want agents who are not part-time, not doing this as a side gig. Like, we want to elevate the industry. And so it's a new concept in the sense that, like, most real estate brokerages, whether they want to or not, their job is they don't make money unless they have agents. But that's what they think. But really, they don't make money unless they have agents that are productive, right? Which was a little bit different from the flat fee. That was the point of the flat fee, is you didn't have to be productive. You paid a monthly fee. Whether you'd close deals or not, we got some money. But I'm moving away from that a little. I'm still keeping my current TXR. That's not going anywhere. But trying to try something a little bit new that we're really excited about, to do something a little bit different for agents, take some of the stress off of them when it comes to these fees, but demand a little bit more from them as well. And say, because a lot of brokerages provide a lot of great training, a lot of great services, but the agents just don't take advantage of it. They just don't go. I can't tell you how many times, like, there'd be an agent who has been with us for 3 months. We've had all these trainings on how to write contracts, how to take listings, how to do this stuff. They don't come to any of it. And then on a Saturday, 3 months later, 6 months later, they'll call me and be like, somebody just called me and they want to write up an offer on this property. They want me to come and take a listing. It's 5 p.m. on Saturday. Do you have 3 hours of your time to walk me through how to do this? And I'm like, man, I've been offering to teach you how to do this for months, and you didn't find it important enough until now. All of a sudden, when it's happening, and now you need me to sacrifice my time. And I want to do that, but it's not fair, right? That's not really fair. So we're just trying to put a little bit more. We want to provide all this stuff to the agents that will absolutely help them grow their business, make more money, and then save money on some of the expenses. But you got to do what we ask you to do. Period. Like, that's the way it is. So
and you're just making them a better agent. You're making them a more successful agent.
We're going to elevate you as an agent. We want to elevate the industry. So I'm very excited about it. We're just getting started. So hopefully, maybe in a year from now, I'll come back and tell you how that's going.
That's awesome.
We would love that.
That's awesome.
Do you have any advice for an up-and-coming, let's say, up-and-coming entrepreneur, whether they want to be a lawyer or a realtor? What kind of advice would you give the newbie, the up-and-comer?
So I think,
or even the entrepreneur as well?
Yeah, I feel like we've said it, and I feel like it's a little cliche to be like, hey, expect to work hard. But it's a big part of it. And it's not, as we've talked about, it's not just working hard, but discipline. I think just discipline is the most important thing. You have to set goals for yourself, mini goals, daily goals. Like, this is unnegotiable that this is happening today, right? I'm getting this done today, because unless you look at yourself, you're not just, you have to be your own boss, right? And so you're not going to have somebody there, which on a little side note is also probably one of the best things that I can advise any new person is find a mentor. Find a great mentor. If you can avoid having to pay for that person, right? Not a coach, like in our industry, the Mike Ferries and Tom Ferries, and they'll happily take your $1,000 and they'll hold you accountable and they'll do a great job, but it's a lot of money every month. But if you can find somebody in your life that you respect, that you can look at and go like, that's where I want to be, that's who I want to be, and you can develop a relationship with that person, that is probably worth tons in future dividends.
Absolutely.
Like, who you guys have heard this, who you surround yourself with is who you're going to be. You're the average of everybody, the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And it's so true. So look to where you want to be and try and surround yourself by those people and elevate yourself, and then work hard.
That's game right there.
Dude, that's it right there. Is there anything else you would like to let us know? Anything we might have forgot to ask you?
No, I mean, God, man, I gave you guys my whole story, I think.
did.
So
You
I
hit us with
appreciate
it
you
all.
taking the
I'm gonna
time. I feel
watch
like I
this back and
talked
watch
to
it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I feel like I just do have one other question.
Yeah.
You don't have to get too deep into it because we've been going for a while, but I always wondering about the agent and the broker, and it's like there's so many agents, and then it's like becoming more and more popular to become a part of a big brokerage. What about the agent that looks at you and is like, I want to be like him. I need to get to that next stage.
Well, it's really interesting. You have to decide early on what your goal is. I mean, there are many individual agents that are way more successful than me. I mean, that close, hundreds of millions of dollars in homes every year. And like, they are just crushing the game as an agent. They don't want to be a broker. They don't want other agents working for them. I mean, maybe they have a little team that they need, but they don't want to have a brokerage and be responsible for errors and omissions insurance and all the liability that comes. They would like working for somebody else and like, let Spencer deal with that crap, So if you want sales, then probably being an agent is good for you. If you are an entrepreneur and you have a business idea and you have an idea for a brokerage that you think is different and that there's a place for it in the industry, there's a hole that, gap that you feel like you have some product or some idea that you can fill, awesome. Then try and build that as an entrepreneur, because, I'm a broker owner. I'm a little bit of a rarity, not to say there's not a lot of me, but there are a lot of big companies, Sotheby's, Century 21, Coldwell Banker. These are large corporations where their franchises, they're either corporate or they have franchises that are owned by a businessman, and that businessman goes and hires a broker, right? They go and hire the guy or girl who's gonna be responsible for all the liability and be their chief designated realtor, designated broker with this. And they get paid a salary, maybe they get something else, but it's just a job that they have, and it might be a decent paying job, but not every broker is like, I want to go start my own brokerage and I want to be the entrepreneur and the business person. So it really just depends on what you want, and that's why teams are becoming such a big deal now, because what's happening in our industry is agents are able to kind of start their own real estate. I don't want to call it a brokerage because it's not a brokerage, but a team, their own group under another broker or under another brokerage, and they can kind of run it like that. The key or the flip side is that they still have to pay the fee to their brokerage as opposed, and then they're going to want to split on top of it as a team leader from the people underneath them.
Right.
But as long as they also can provide something of value, whether it's leads or training or something that the person is willing to work for that agent and pay them split on top of what they have to pay their brokerage, then it works out fine. But that's a lot of what's happening right now. You don't, I mean, you see a lot of new brokerages emerging. Real, one that bought us a while ago, really, it didn't work out so great. I mean, EXP is not new anymore, but in terms of some of these others, it's relatively new. You know, there's new brokerages, and they all come out with kind of a new idea, something that's different, that's a breakaway from your typical what's typical at the time.
Right.
And will it work? But these are businessmen who start these, not brokers necessarily.
They understand the systems and processes and everything it takes.
Yeah, and they'll go hire a broker to
Yeah.
handle that part. Because just like I talked to you guys, real estate agents. I mean, most brokers are analytical. I mean, that's why I'm good. I'm the attorney side of things. I'm not necessarily the marketing side of things. You know, and it's not that I'm not good at sales and I can't do it. It's just not my go-to thing.
It's not your strong point.
Yeah.
Everyone has their strong point.
My strongest
You're
point.
analytical, you're creative.
Right.
Like everyone, it's better to work within your strengths.
Yeah. So you just have to, you know who you are and what you want to do. Do I want to start a business? Do I want to build something big and have hundreds of agents working under me? Or do I just want to keep it small and go crush it and become the biggest real estate agent in my area or town or city or whatever it might be and just focus on me?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Truth.
Yeah, that was really good. I'm glad you asked that. Is there anything you would like to plug in where people can find you? Maybe where they should send money?
No, well, I mean, listen.
Post your
Yeah,
Venmo.
look up Levitt and Quinn on YouTube. Check out My Grandmother, the Attorney. If you guys like what you see, send a couple bucks to Levitt and Quinn. You can find them their website and send in donations. And then if you're interested in talking to me about our new Retro Realty brand and what, elevating the industry, we'd love to talk to you. You can go to retrorealty.com and click on the more information there, and it'll take you to set up appointments with us. So we'd love that. And if you need legal services, my law firm is very niche, so it really it's very limited to again, still loss mitigation stuff, loan modifications, short sale negotiations. But if you need it, reach out, lugashlawcenter.com. So
I think we need to have one more podcast after this, strictly talking about how you manage all these different companies.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's got to be like, okay, you obviously, because you seem very calm and like low stress. Like we got to have a whole show based on just that.
No, it's just a lot of Xanax. That's all.
You know they say like you're like a duck. You look calm above water.
Yeah, exactly.
Under the water.
That's exact. I mean, no joke. That's exactly right. My days are spent like, okay, today I'm working on Lugash Law Center stuff. I got letters to deal with, and then like, oh shoot, I tomorrow I got to work on my realtor, my broker stuff. I got I just have to keep kind of managing. It's a lot of putting out the biggest fire, which is not the best way of handling things, but it works for me right now.
Right.
It's a lot, but it's all works out in the end, and it's fun to have different things going on.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Sounds like
when you have that spirit, sometimes you get bored just doing one thing, so you kind of got to get little things going. And I will say, people used to joke with me when I still at Big Block. They were like, congratulations on the huge success of this company, and it was very successful, and I was so proud of it. But the truth is, I was like, behind the scenes, low key, Lugash Law Center is my most successful company. Like, I have a little 10 by 10 office. I have one employee, and that brings me like mailbox money that I barely have to do anything for, because I did it. Don't get me wrong. I put in the groundwork for years, like where I worked out full time, and we created all these letters, and we answered every issue that ever came up with any bank. But then we had this library of stuff, and my paralegal knew everything, and I was like, that's my most successful business over there. Nobody knows about it, but
That's awesome.
yeah.
Do you have any social medias you want to plug in?
No, I'm a voyeur on social media. I check it out every once in a while, but I don't post too much or anything. So I'm out there. I'm on all the platforms. So if you want to find me. But
He's a ghost watcher.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Spencer,
Well,
thank you so much.
thank you guys.
Really
That was fun.
appreciate it.
That was
Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I hope to come back and visit you again.
definitely.
Absolutely.
I
definitely.
can't wait to
Definitely.
see you guys, how you guys get bigger.
Oh yeah,
we're getting
absolutely.
there.
I'm
We're
gonna
getting
watch
there.
this podcast and be
Yeah,
like, man, I
we
should have
will.
asked that question. I should have asked that question.
We'll have another one.
We'll have another one. Yeah, round
Happy
two.
to come back.
Yeah.
This is the Get Louder podcast.
That's
Brandon,
right. Yes, sir.
hit us with the outro.